Welcome to Harmonized. I am your host, Gigi Naval, integrative and functional registered dietitian nutritionist, here to help you harmonize your gut and hormone health for improved metabolic health. Hey there, friend. I am going to take a break from my usual content here on my podcast, Harmonized, and I'm just going to share a personal story with you. So this was way back when I was 9 years old. One of my best friends, Diane, and I were walking from our classroom because school was out for the day, and we were walking towards the parking lot, or at least I was, and she was walking to her house because she lived down the street. Out of the blue, and I mean out of the blue, my first friend in life ever who I ever played with, who is 2 years older than me and who was 2 grades above me, just came out of nowhere and socked me on my left shoulder with such a powerful force that I was knocked to the ground. I felt like the heavens were spinning. The wind was knocked out of me. I was in complete confusion and thought, I got hit really badly. And I was still on the ground. Diane was trying to help me. And I was looking from the corner of my eye. I can see that my friend was walking down the sidewalk and just looking at me with a mean look in her eyes. And I couldn't understand that look. I couldn't understand why she hit me so hard, where it was so physically painful and emotionally painful. I said nothing at that moment or the next few moments. Diane didn't say anything. I think she was in shock too, but she did help me up. And we continued to walk down together, and I joined my friends who I was carpooling with back to Los Angeles. But I was in shock the whole time. I didn't tell anybody in the car. When I got home, I just didn't tell my parents at all. I was frozen. I was completely frozen. Like, how can this friend who I love, who was my playmate, how could she have done what she did? The next day, before class got out, she parked herself at the door of my classroom so that when I got out, she had Chinese jacks all ready to give to me. And so when I got out, she saw me and she said, "Hey, listen, if you don't ever tell your mom what happened yesterday, I'll give you these jacks, these Chinese jacks." Well, Chinese jacks were so popular back then, and I didn't have any. And I thought, oh, how sweet, how kind. Yeah, I was gullible. And I wanted the Chinese jacks. So I said, okay, I am not going to tell my mom or anybody. So a whole year passed by. I was in intense pain. I was playing violin back then. It was hard to play the violin, to practice, to go to my lessons. And then after a year, I just couldn't take it anymore. Any jacket I was wearing, any long coat I was wearing, it was putting extra weight on my shoulder that it was so painful. And I finally told my mom and my dad. I don't know if they really understood the severity of how hard she hit me, but my mom said, we're going to call her Mary. Mary is going through a difficult time. Yeah, so sorry that she hit you. But, her parents are going through a divorce, and it's making her feel angry inside, and so she has taken it out on you. And I love Jesus, have always loved Jesus ever since I was little. And so I thought, oh oh, well, okay, I will forgive her then. But I didn't know that when you forgive someone, that it is okay to feel all of the emotions, to feel the pain, to feel the hurt, to feel any type of emotion that was angry. I didn't think that for a Christian that was appropriate to feel. So I forgave her, and I felt good about forgiving her because she was my friend. She's going through a difficult time. Her parents are divorced. Mine were together. I'm blessed to have my parents. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep loving her and showing her kindness. Okay, well, 4 decades passed by. And during those 4 decades, I continually have had issues on this left side. Finally, when I was 16, though, I'm going to back up a little bit, 16, and back in the day, taking violin lessons, piano lessons at the USC School of Community School of Performing Arts, you had to have a jury. And so it was the end of a quarter. I had to do my jury and play in front of these teachers, and that was it. The pain was horrendous. So that's when I decided to stop playing the violin. I think I was 16, yes, at this time. And my parents were okay with that. And I finally then went to an orthopedic doctor, a pediatric orthopedic doctor. And when he looked at I believe it was my CAT scans. I can't remember, but he was doing some intense physical exam on me, moving this up and down. And he said that this left side, I can't remember now, but this left side was either higher, the scapula was higher or lower than the other scapula. And so he had me see a physical therapist, and my mom would come with me to my PT sessions, and my mom would see her. I had an awesome PT, and she would dig her fingers underneath my scapula and lift it, and my mom would just cringe and could not bear to see her do that to me. It did help, but I still suffered for many years. And then I think it's now been 2 years that I actually went to a biomechanic therapist. So he does a lot of myofascia releases. And in one of my sessions, this was a session after I had gone back to him. I went to him for my frozen shoulder on the right side. And then about a year or so later, I went to him because this left side was just escalating in all the pain and the discomfort. So the first session, it was okay. And then by the time I went back to him for a second time for this left side, he was looking at my face and he said, "Are you feeling emotional?" And I literally was looking like this, really ugly. Yes. And he said, "Go ahead and cry it out." He had no idea what was going on in my head. And he was working on this left side. The more he worked on it, the more that scenario of when I was 9 years old and my friend knocked me really hard to the ground. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she was competing in tennis competitions a lot at that age. So at 12 years old. So she had a very strong arm. And so I was reliving that entire scenario and seeing everything pass through my vision, my eyes, as my biomechanic therapist was working on this. And I was crying like I've never cried before with the pain, the hurt that I had for her. That was really intensified because I began to have it when I was 9, but I stopped it. and I did not process it. So I was crying at that session, and my biomechanic therapist said, continue to cry. It's okay. It's okay. And he was explaining to me that we have these sheets, so to speak, in our body. It's like a sheet called fascia. And this is what happened because I did not process all the pain, all the emotional pain, physical pain. This sheet, this fascia became like crumpled or scrunched up. And the data was stored of what happened to me in the fascia over here in this part of my body in the left side. And so finally, when he was working on this and trying to iron it out, so to speak, so this fascia would be smooth, he said that process was releasing all the unprocessed data, all of the emotions, which was coming back to me. And because I was crying my heart out, and even when I went home, I was crying some more, like it was just happening that day, that was finally the release of all the pent up emotions that I didn't process, and it was stored here in my shoulder. And at the same time, though, I was also working on my particular specific mineral needs, which is so important with our muscle health, muscle tension, etc. So working on all that and working with my biomechanic therapist and with Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and doing red light therapy, because I have my own red light therapy here at home, a combination of everything together and fully surrendering to God all that I had suffered and letting him take over with the healing process and guiding me in how to heal appropriately. I'm telling you, it's been 2 years now. You know, it might have even been 3. The years have been going by so fast. My left shoulder has been incredibly amazing. The pain is 98% gone, and it's very rare that 2% shows up. Yes, there will always be some kind of tightness there, but I just have to keep working on it and get myofascia releases. But the pain, that is gone. What a difference. I praise God. I thank God for that. But it's true, when we don't process the trauma, the body does keeps a score of it. And wow, it is so true that happens, but God designed us in a way that it is incredible. It is incredible to be able to heal. And as Christians, we are allowed to feel our emotions, our pain. In Ecclesiastes 3:4, it says there is a time. Well, let me go back to verse 1. It says, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, and a time to heal. I went back up to verse 3, and a time to build up. So basically this is saying, yes, the emotions are important to feel and to process. But if my thoughts, my actions, how I live is dictated by my emotions that I didn't process, that I didn't ask God to work with me on, then that's not a good thing. That's very negative to my body. But God does allow us to feel our emotions and to process it. And I'm going to go back to Psalms 139. And I've read this before, and I will continue to read this verse over and over and over again. For I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. And so I love reading that because God designed all of us to be able to heal when we know what to do, when we know what our specific nutrient needs are, specific to us according to our nutrigenetics, according to what we're needing, according to what we are burning through due to stress. And when we address those specific areas accordingly with a biomechanic therapist and a counselor. I've also had a therapist for other issues in my life, which has been so helpful. I know that God has provided therapists and counselors with great knowledge to help us. Just like I've needed physical therapy for all of my sports-related issues, just like I've gone to a speech therapist, a vocal therapist for my vocal issues, it's like, why not for the other areas of my body get therapy help for that, whichever therapy is appropriate and needed for that. So I'm so glad works through so many other people to help us get better. It does take a team. It does take a village when we are willing to work on what we need to, but we can't just say, I'm going to work on it by myself. With all of these team players, it really makes a difference. But the head physician of my medical team is Jesus. And I pray that he will also be the head of your medical team as well. It makes a big difference when we work with God, when he is number one in our lives. All right, friend. In all that we do, in all that we eat and drink, may we do it all for the glory of God.